Sailing for days in the open sea, hunting the blood of my enemies, searching for gold with Gilmekki, we're the pirates of the coast.
Hello, everybody. You're watching Bsawr, Black Sails, Apocalypse World, and Running. I am Rich, and this is my buddy Josh. How are you doing, Josh?
Howdy. I'm good, doing well. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad well is being done by you because it needs to happen. Well needs to happen, and it's your responsibility, Josh.
It's true. If you are watching The Flash, you can agree that Wells needs to be done by somebody. Anybody, really.
There's a Wells in every universe, it turns out. So, but this is not about The Flash, even though Flash is a very fun show. This is a fan show about the Black Sails series on Starz. This is also an approach that's a little different in that we posit that the Black Sails show was written by people who were actually playing the role-playing game Apocalypse World, first edition Apocalypse World, and that's how this show came to be. And then tacked on at the end, we're not even sure if it fits, but we like talking about it. We're going to talk a little bit about our running. It could be a short talk this time around. We'll see. This is second season, episode 3, episode XI. It's the 11th episode because these are short seasons that Starz puts out. But boy, they sure do pack in a lot of cool stuff. I'm going to give... Oh, sorry, Josh.
No, I wanted to drop into here somewhere. If anybody, for some reason, has been following along this long and hasn't seen the show somehow, Starz is doing a streaming service now. So if it has been inaccessible to you before, it is no longer. So in my august opinion, Black Sails is worth the, $9 monthly fee all by itself.
Right, and you get all of the back-ish episodes. And there's also Outlander, I think, is also on Starz.
And Outlander is also awesome.
And American Gods is coming soon, which is going to be amazing. With Ian McShane. Ian McShane is Mr. Wednesday. Right?
That'll do.
Right? Okay, yeah. Good bit. That can also be part of Amazon Prime. You can get it a la carte. You can bundle it into your Prime. So there are a lot of ways to get Starz now, which is really exciting. There's something else on Starz. I just can't think of it right off the top of my head, but it's a pretty cool. All the the Spartacus stuff, the Spartacus Blood and Sands, all that stuff is on Starz as well. Really great show, especially more lined up with some of your Black Sails hyper violence. Lots of handsome men who does that
in various states of undress.
Yep, and also not Flash, but Arrow related. Major character in Arrow first season. I think Deathstroke guy was also one of the second season. You're right. Was one of the guys from Spartacus. All right, I'm just saying Spartacus because Clueless. I'm sorry. It's just a silly joke. Let's talk about this episode. I'm going to do the rundown, and then we'll do some cool scenes and some PC moves and MC moves. If you don't know what Apocalypse World is, go to apocalypse-world.com, I believe, or just Google it. It's my favorite RPG about post-apocalypse, and probably my favorite RPG right now. At least that system is kind of awesome sauce. All right. We are second season. We're 3 episodes in. This is the first confrontation between Eleanor, our hard holder, and Miranda, who is the lover, as far as we know at this point, the lover of Flint, our chopper, who leads the 2 ships now, technically, more or less.
Yeah.
One of them got blown to hell, so it's back down to 1 ship.
But it's a big one.
Big Spanish man of war. Flint and Silver discover that Hornigal has been ousted from the fort because they've just come back after Vane booted Hornigal out, and then when Hornigal was going to retake the fort, Eleanor kind of slipped in some secret information to Vane so that Hornagle's stuck. He's actually living in tents out on the beach. That's gotta suck. Vane goes to visit Max, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. Max is our Skinner. She's also the owner of the brothel. Rackham, who is our operator class, or that playbook unfortunately didn't make it to second edition. It will be a driver, but we're sticking with the whole operator. I know, Josh.
It's very sad. One of my favorites.
Yeah, but all the cool stuff of operator really did port over to driver. It's kind of like driver needed a little fuel injection, and so it stole the nitrous from operator, and operator's left off in the maelstrom. I don't know. So Jack Rackham, our operator, confronts Anne, who is his gun lugger. Also could have been a faceless, but we're definitely seeing a whole lot of her face now. So we'll stick with gun lugger. The two of them have been partners, but Anne's been hooking up with Max, the Skinner, and Rackham confronts her about the fact that he feels Max is manipulating her by closing the door on him, and there's nothing he can do on the outside of that door. Vane takes on Lowe, who has been a major threat. So in our schema, Vane is not a PC. Although I would argue in second episode or second season, he might have become a PC. Possibly, we'd have to talk about a playbook. Maybe we could chat about that in a bit.
Yeah,
because this is definitely if he's a PC, this is the episode where he becomes a PC.
Right. Otherwise, this is a large part of this episode is fights between NPCs and conversations between NPCs. But Vane keeps like he's sometimes there and he's sometimes not in terms of being a protagonist. I think a while back we posited that maybe he was a guy who came to the game to try out Apocalypse World, and so he played Vane for a little bit, and then he has schedule conflict and he couldn't come back.
Yeah, he's totally that guy. He's that guy who's like, guys, I'm sorry, this is a weird work schedule thing. Yeah, and then he shows up, and Vane's not a threat. He's actually a PC. This is the one where Vane's a PC. We'll go with that because there's some cool stuff. Then Anne plus Max plus Rackham have a pretty significant scene. There's some stuff that happens for Rackham and Anne that's pretty great. And then the note that you placed in there at the end of our little synopsis.
It's very important.
It is. What is that, Josh?
It's at the end of this episode, everyone gets laid.
That's right.
It's very important.
Okay, cool. So what's one cool scene? Do you want me to lead this one off, or do you want to jump in with a cool scene?
Well, we have. I'll talk about a couple scenes all at once because there's an interesting theme to this episode. We have Flint confronting Eleanor about letting Vane take the fort, and he tries to convince her that she should back him on taking the fort by force.
Yep.
And she says no because he's got nothing to leverage. And then we have another scene where Jack Rackham is talking to Anne about how he cannot help her or assist her or anything because she's behind the door and he's not a part of that relationship. He again, doesn't have any leverage. So we have, I thought there was a third one and I can't think of it right now. But there's a lot of scenes where people are like all very frustrated with each other and trying to get them to do things and realizing that they just don't have any oomph to get the other person to do what they want. The only exception being Vane, who decides he doesn't need leverage. He just goes and chops a guy's head off.
Oh, he did. So delicious. I like that early in the episode, if we're positing that Vane is a PC. By the way, what playbook would Vane be?
Man, I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I've not slotted him as a PC in my headspace, because I don't know where he would go as a PC. Because
we've got Silver as a battle babe. We've got the chopper that is Flint. We've got the gun lugger that's Anne. In the first edition, that's really all of your heavy hitters. What would Vane be? He feels like a threat for a season. Second season, is he some wackadoodle's alt playbook? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's NPC versus NPC, but one thing that I noticed I just want to pull out is in the very first scene, one of the early scenes, Lo, who is the got a cataract eye, big scar, very, very vicious, has a serious feud going on with Eleanor. He goes to see Vane and kind of says, "Hey, I want to make sure we don't have a problem." And Vane says, "No, we don't have a problem." And then Lo says, "Hey, I'm just being clear here because I happen to overreact from time to time. And I want to make sure that when this feud escalates with Eleanor, that you don't become part of it." And Vane says, "No, no, no, I don't have any part of this." Then he takes a little bag of gold. I love this. He takes his little bag of gold, he sets it on the table, and Vane has this look like, "The hell is that?" And Lo says, "Well, just paying a little tribute." And then he takes off. I love that bag of gold because it shows up later. And that's a cool setup. Because what does Vane do? He was told last episode by Eleanor, "Hey, Lo has something secret." Now, how did Eleanor find that out? She found that out from the first mate of Lo before Lo cut his head off.
Yeah, he didn't like the spilling of secrets and collusion.
Yeah, so what does Vane do with that bag of gold? He just runs straight to Max. Now, this is the first scene with Vane and Max where they've been face to face. I don't think I've ever seen him come to the brothel since she's taken over.
No, and I think there might have been a face-to-face in the first season, back when his crew was doing terrible, terrible things to Max.
Right. I'm sorry. I meant since that time.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't think they cross paths very often.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he has not come to the brothel, and it's not like she's going out of her way to see him. So he walks in, and it's just the two of them. Like, the brothel is not, it's the afternoon, evidently, maybe the really hot part of time of the day. Nobody's into having the sex. And I love the tension of that scene and how it turns. Now, we definitely see some PC moves here, right?
Oh, yes.
I think, and we're going to kind of jump into some PC moves. So in this, Vane goes to see Max. He wants to know about the prize, and Max does a read first on him, right? And she totally gets all the answers. She knows.
She does.
She knows.
She reads him so well that I think that she just bought the expand move thing on her last XP. And she got a 12 plus, and she gets to control the rest of this situation.
Now, keep going. I'm sorry. Yeah. I got a question.
He's come to Max because he's heard that pirates come to the brothel and they tell the women things that they shouldn't be telling them. And then Max sells that information, and he wants to know what's in the hold of Lo's ship. And he offers her some gold. Here's some gold that, I may have just got from Lo himself. But he offers her the gold, and she reads him so well and so hard that she immediately sees through the fact that this is not some business transaction for him. He's looking for Casus Belli. He's looking for a just cause to go to war, because he really wants to go pummel the dude that's been saying mean things to the woman that he loves, but he can't do that because he's an OG pirate. So he goes out of his way and tries to spend a good deal of money trying to find a reason to go after Lo. And Max sees all of that. And so she's like, I don't get gold out of this. That's nothing. And so she, in a surprising show of charity, in fact, says, I could do that for you, but the cost is that you sit down with Jack Rackham and Anne Bonny and you clear their names. Because they aren't happy being brothel owners along with her. They want to be pirates again. And so she clears the way for that to happen.
I think she's generous, but no, go ahead. Keep going.
No, I'm done. The read is so good. It's just perfect.
two questions. Well, one statement. I don't know if Max is being incredibly benevolent here because I'm pretty sure she understands if I get a couple pirates that I can send off with all these secrets, I'm going to get more money. If they're not here, then whatever I take, whatever's reported to them, I'm the only one who's physically here. I'm sure that there's some reasons that Max has done this that are not entirely altruistic. Now, the next question I have is, she reads him. Do you think she's acting on a read answer when she says, no, 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 give me this, not the gold you're giving me right now? Or do you think that she rolled that into a manipulate to try to get to up the ante? Because it's a big ask, right?
It is a very big ask. And I think what's most likely, and I should have done the quick research for this, but either it's part of the basic move, or it's a special move that you can get for the Skinner, where you can get a +1 going forward when you work off of the results from a read. So she gets that fabulous read, and then she rolls that into a manipulate, where she's working on that information she's got, so she gets that +1, or I think it may be +2 or something. It's a awesome read that she does, and she turns that around and puts it into her manipulate. That's one way it might have happened. The other way it might have happened was she says it, and the GM thinks it's so awesome that he goes, "Yes, that's great. Do that."
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely do some stuff at the table, but read a sitch is what's going to give you a +1 forward acting on the answers from a read a sitch. Read a person, usually you do the question of how can I get you to, So it was just one of those where I was looking at him like, I wonder, because I could see either one of those. Like, it's a read, so the GM goes, oh, that's a great idea. Or it's a read, and then she says, you know what, I'm not going to just take this. I'm going to take that and push it forward. So that was pretty great. And then, manipulate from a Skinner. They've got a high hot. Manipulate, you roll on hot. So maybe she just went the dice. But she aced it. It was pretty great. And that, of course, was a nice resetting of things for Rackham and Anne, because you were talking about very, very astutely how things were kind of gummed up for the two of them. They were stuck. They were circling a little bit. And this absolutely opens up. In fact, there's a very brief scene where Rackham goes out because he's already got it in his head that he's going to get a new ship. And he goes out and talks to like 5 or 6 guys, and it's like a side scene, and they're talking and listening. And he goes, and of course, your captain will be me. And they literally walk off. They just walk off.
And like you can see, they're all like kind of engaged in it, and he's selling it, and they're like excited. And then he says, "And I'll be the captain." And they're like, their shoulders drop, and they all just turn away.
Yeah, that is a no. You don't have leverage to build this crew. Sorry, that was pretty great. Let's see here. So you mentioned how Flint confronted Eleanor and tried to manipulate her to get Vane out of the fort. I like your interpretation of it. He doesn't even have leverage, right? Eleanor, not even. Flint's like, can I roll? And the MC's like, I don't know. Eleanor's like, I'm sorry. Guilt? Really? Guilt is how you... Yeah, no. And then what does Eleanor do? She's like, well, Miranda Barlow and I were talking earlier. Flint's like, I'm out. I'm not even listening to that mess. And he goes into a flashback, but we don't. Yeah, flashbacks.
Flashbacks.
One of my favorite episodes of the season because the amount of flashbacks incredibly short. Other than it began with a flashback talking about the troubles, but you can skip past that because literally it's like, hey, we've got some time to kill. That's literally what that scene was to me.
I think a lot of the flashbacks are serving the TV show purpose of bringing new viewers up to speed. So consequently, they're kind of boring for people who have been watching.
Yeah, let's see now. You want to talk about that pre-move? I really like that pre-move, that your approach on that.
Oh, yeah. Cool. So early in the episode, we have Flint on board the ship, and he does 2 things where they're about to come into port, and first of all he invites the Vanguard, basically the toughest, meanest fighters on the crew, to come sleep in the captain's quarters where there's more space. And he is questioned by his quartermaster as to his motives. And Flint says, there's space here, because it's a huge captain quarters. And he says, there's space here, and I'm not using all of it, and they should use it. And the quartermaster says, I think you're trying to get the Vanguard on your side. And Flint gives this kind of smirk in response, like, sure, maybe, whatever. And this is really cool because it's not a move. It's not like they got dice out. It's not like they looked up what happens on the little chart. But it's definitely something that Flint does that has consequences. The other one in this scene is that he says, we are not going to let anybody off the ship to go into port. Because these are pirates. They just had a big win. What they want to do is go into port, get drunk, get laid, etc. And Flint says no. Because he doesn't want anybody to know that the Urca gold is back in Florida waiting to be collected. So he does that as well. And again, that's not something that he's going to roll dice for. I guess the GM or the DM, or I'm sorry, the MC, whatever, Polyhawk God. The MC could have made him roll for Pack Alpha for making them do what he wanted. But I think the MC wisely refrained. He let that be just setting context for the rest of the session. And that does come up later. And it does basically half of what happens in this episode happens because the crew, I was going to say the crew of the Walrus, but they're no longer the Walrus. So Flint's crew is not in port, so a number of things can happen. So a lot of Apocalypse World, like we talk about the moves a lot, but a lot of it is also just setting up the fictional circumstances and shaping what happens. And both good players and good DMs or good MCs make sure that that's a part of it and take things into account and say, oh, that's what you're doing, then consequently X, Y, and Z happens, rather than making every single thing about rolling the dice and picking things off of the list.
Right. It's a conversation. I completely agree that you shouldn't be making every time that this guy talks to his crew or a member of his crew, even if it's not the most positive relationship, that everything has to be a move. I think that's really smart, because then the moves lose some of their value, and they really are generally until later in the game. You're going to end up in that 7 to 9, which is hard choices, and it almost, you could create a point where a chopper doesn't want to talk to his gang because every time he talks to them, he's going to get a mixed success and maybe have to like hurt one of them. And then how much?
Yeah, falls under like be a fan of your characters, right? Sometimes you just let the badass chopper be a badass chopper without having somebody challenge his authority.
Right. Right. And you can even tell him the consequences and ask, hey, if you tell this guy to do he's already figured it out. He's going to do it, but it just makes Dufresne, it's going to, that gulf widens, right? And you've got him in a position. So, just be advised. That's the thing. Yeah, well, whatever. I'm getting the Vanguard, and that's what I need. Let's see. What other PC moves we have?
Well, before we get to one of the cooler PC moves, there's also another not quite a move, but it's on the GM or the MC. It's on the MC side. And that is when the MC starts, it's towards the beginning of the episode when he starts in on Rackham. And in the show, Rackham wakes up and he is alone in bed. Anne is not there. He has to go find her.
Right. And
this is actually one of my stumbling blocks whenever I run Apocalypse World, because I'm very accustomed to running a game with scenes. And I like to set a scene and then run the scene and then conclude the scene. And that's not really how Apocalypse works. Apocalypse World works. Because in Apocalypse World, what you really need to do is you start with, what are you doing right now? And then you ask more questions to flesh out the scene. So in this case, how that would have looked was the DM says, okay, so Rackham, where are you waking up? Or about what time do you wake up now that you are nothing but a brothel keeper and not a captain and blah, blah, blah. And Rackham says, oh, well past into the late morning. And the DM then turns to Anne's player and says, and are you there?
Yes.
That Anne's not in the scene, or at least not yet. The DM just sets up. Are you there? Or are you otherwise occupied? Are you doing something else? Are you not with Rackham? And that sets up basically their arc for this episode.
Yeah, I can even see a thing, because I've played with this player, but I can see a thing where the MC says, so player of Anne, are you there? And the player of Max says, no, I've got her in my room. I'm going down on her right now. And then the player of Anne's like, well, I guess that happened.
I'm not going to turn that down.
It's like, what are you going to do? Looks over at player of Jack like, and the player of Jack's like, yeah, well, well, the last time we, like, Jack Rackham and Anne on camera tried to have sex, he had problems. So, yeah, that hard move came back to bite her on the butt. Yeah, I really like that. That felt very Apocalypse World. That was awesome. Cool. Let's see. And then we have at the end, we got a couple things near the end. So once the handshake happens where Vane follows through on Max's, listen, if you want this information, you're going to have to make up. So then he offers a handshake to Rackham in the brothel in front of Cruz, like
in front of everyone.
Yeah, in front of all the important peoples. Then Max comes down and whispers into his ear what the cargo is, and I love the look on Vane's face of like, shit, seriously? Well, and to
some extent, this is an annoying mystery box because the audience doesn't know yet. We know that it's a girl because they pulled out the girl for the very first episode of this season, but we don't know why she's important or anything else. But apparently, what Max tells Vane why she's important, and by Vane's reaction, we can see how important this is, and that's actually a little more effective than being told who she is, because then we'd have all this backstory that we'd have to have explained to us. But we see first Vane going, "Oh shit."
Yeah, and the very next thing that Vane does is pretty amazing. It's unfortunately, NPC and quasi-PC. But Jack and Anne, their reaction is, hey, we can get a ship. This is great. We're going to make it happen. And that opening up, then Anne says she's heading up to bed. And she says, well, are you coming? And so he follows up, and then she goes in to Max's room. And he pauses and starts to go on to his own room. And that's when Anne looks back and says, nothing, just gives him the look.
Gives him the look.
The look. She heads in. Max is there. Rackham stands. He's right at the door. And she seduces them both. She just strips down and heads for the bedroom. And one moment that I thought was really cool. I think this is one of those. So she says, well, I want to seduce them both. Right, the player of Anne says, I want to seduce both of them. And the MC says, okay, well, what does that look like? And the player of Anne's like, I totally have a feel for what this is like, right? She strips off the clothes, and when she pulls her shirt up, her hair gets moved out of the way, and they see these horrible whip scars on her back, reminding. And I love the cut to Rackham's reaction of like, yeah, not a surprise, just one of those like reminders of those scars she carries. And then she walks into the other room, and there's that long moment, she's rolling the dice, rolling seduce, And I love the Max and Rackham kind of look at each other, and the Max is like, "Well, I'm not turning this down."
Yeah, and they're both like, is this happening? I guess this is happening.
And Rackham just takes his foot and pulls the door closed, and here you go. Sex moves fire. Pop, pop, pop. 3-way sex moves. And then...
Then we get into the always amusing conundrum of, do the sex moves go off in a 3-way if one member is the battle babe? But we don't need to go into that right now. Oh, wait, none of them are battle babes. No, I keep forgetting.
Yeah. That's Silver. Yeah, if Silver was in there, it would who would even know? Max, I don't even know.
Yeah, Max gets +1 HX with both of them, and Rackham now has to take care of Max, or else it's a failed gig.
Mm-hmm.
And the Gunlooker can protect both of them.
Yep, so yes, +1.
Yeah. Yep. So really, the threesome is not that great a deal for Jack, all told. But hey.
Poor operators.
The price of the Gunlooker being able to protect him better is that the Skinner can manipulate him better, and he needs to keep her happy as well. And he says that is a good deal.
Oh, the operator has the second worst special move or sex move in the original playbooks. The worst, in my opinion, the driver. Yeah. Like, seriously? Why would the driver ever want to have sex? Like, it's the worst.
Well, the idea there is that it's the goal for the driver. The design goal is that the driver does it, right? The driver is supposed to be desired by all, but never consummated. It's not always as fun to play as it is amusing to see play out, but it's fun.
Yeah. Not for me. Fun for other people, I'm sure.
Right.
Oh, you want to talk about the last PC move? Because it kind of happens at the last of the episode. I want to make sure.
The last PC move is lots of fun. It's not a very consequential one, mostly because it's a success. Flint goes back to his ship, and he says, "Okay, guys, I thought that we were going to, just sail in and resupply and go get the gold, but we can't do that, and you guys aren't going to get rich because Charles Vane has the fort, and we have to go take down the fort. We have to destroy our own defenses in the port in order to resupply so that we can get the gold, so we can come back and rebuild it all." And he sells it. He sells it so hard and so well, and he gets his entire crew behind him, hating on Charles Vane, took the fort. And the episode actually ends with them about to open fire on the fort.
Yeah, really exciting.
It's great fun. But that's how you do Pack Alpha correctly. That is a 10+ hit.
And he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong. He just needed to phrase the situation in the best mindset to get what he wanted. Roll those dice, and it was awesome. Let's switch over to MC hard moves. We had a few here. I'm going to talk about one. You can talk about the GM set. Mm-hmm. So Mr. Scott, there's a point where Mr. Scott, former second in command behind Eleanor, the hard holder, he asks her about her loyalties because she came to him saying, "Hey, listen, I think Flint's wrong here. She's trying to think maybe Vane's okay, right? Maybe this is all right." And she's questioning, and he says, "Why are you turning on Flint? You've done all of this leading to this point, trusted this man, set up all of these things in motion. Why are you questioning him now? You really need to think about where your loyalties lie." And he starts to have a moment where you can see on Eleanor's face, she's like, "Okay, you're kind of right." Then there's a woman's scream. And then they go to investigate it, and that is where it is revealed. Like, if we imagine that the confrontation between Vane and Lowe is off screen, this is where the MC brings it in, right? And there is Lowe's head on a pike with a sign underneath it that says, "I angered Charles Vane." love that. And at first I thought that was written in blood. It was not. It was written in a very fancy script. Like he
Yes.
had the blood. He could have written it in blood. He just took actual ink. Right. Good handwriting for a pirate, by the way. Very nice. Unless maybe he commissioned someone. I would like for you in his little, his nice little brown eyes. He's just staring at somebody who's has really good script. Gives him that bag of gold. Was you writing a very nice script?
I need a sign made.
I need a sign. And so he has this sign, and then we cut away to a slightly later scene. Not much later, I don't think. And it's in the fort, and Eleanor's come to visit him. And so they go off, right? He's with his crew, but they go off and they go into a room. He's holding a torch. And I love this because the very first thing he says is he says, I didn't do it for you.
Right. As you just pointed out, as he is literally holding a torch for her.
Oh, good point.
Lovely.
Oh, that's really good. I'm sorry, a side thing, but I noticed this on the second time through. There's some interesting sound design stuff that's going on in this episode. There's a point where Rackham and Anne are talking about how they're basically fucked, and you hear a donkey braying in the background. And I thought, that's pretty cute. And then there's a point where Flint is talking to Hornigold, I think that's, and you hear a dog barking in the distance. Like, there's just some interesting little, like, that seems almost planned. That's kind of cool. Like, that makes me, when I think of MC in games, I'm like, how can I bring in that soundscape? It's kind of neat. So then he says, I didn't do it for you while he's holding a torch. That's so clever. I did not catch that. That's one of those like moments where the actor's like, I'm holding a torch. Like, that's a good idea. So Eleanor's answer to that is she just launches herself at him. And absolutely, like, they do the deed, all this pent up energy, sex move fires, which for the heart holder means you can give somebody a gift and it doesn't cost you anything. But maybe this is a seduction. I don't know. Could it be one of those? I'm kind of in my mind. I'm like, is she just going for the sex move? If it's a game, I'm thinking Eleanor's player said, listen, I know Vane knows a lot more. Like, I definitely want to get in good with him, and I think maybe he knows what's going on here. So she sleeps with him, and then he says, I've got something to show you. He takes her down, and that's where we get the exposition of the girl, right? Because Eleanor knows. Yeah,
it's the 1-2 punch for the heart holder. It's kind of like a hidden move for the heart holder, which is nice because the heart holder doesn't get any moves. I'm not bitter, but the heart holder sex move is you can, whoever you're intimate with, you can give one barter to at no cost to yourself. Not coincidentally, the manipulate move allows you to get a 10+ by giving somebody one barter. So if you're the heart holder, you could sleep with anybody and immediately manipulate them to do whatever you need. So this is totally what Eleanor does. She goes and sleeps with Vane and then gets him to tell her what he's got. Absolutely. I don't know if that was her only agenda, but that's certainly what she does with her extra free from nowhere barter that she gets to spend. She gets some information out of him.
Oh, that is clever. Josh Roby, next level. I think you played a heart holder. You have played a heart holder before, I take it.
Oh, yes.
Sweet. And then at the end, we have one more hard move. Or no, a TM set.
Yeah, just at the end of our list for some reason. But it's another, like you were saying, the MC. I got it right the first time. The MC uses Mr. Scott to ask Eleanor about her loyalties, and he does the same thing again, using Hornigold to ask Silver, dude, you are working with Flint, who literally killed his best friend in order to further his own ambitions. I'll continue working with that guy. And this is a great technique in Apocalypse World and basically any other role-playing game UGM is to get NPCs to ask players questions about their motivations. And in this case, Silver just says it's the payoff.
Yeah.
But it's a really great scene, and it feels very natural. And that's one of the real benefits to this technique is that having NPCs that ask the PCs questions is great. Especially those questions that you want to ask them. You just find an NPC to do it for you. So again, not a hard move on the MC's part, but definitely a good move.
Yeah, really solid. And also, it just kind of reminds you of the world they live in. And I maybe it's not a hard move, but it's definitely a move. You know?
Oh yeah.
I like that. You can have moves that are just propelling things forward, reflecting a little bit of chorus response, like in a Greek play, like, "Hey, I'm just noticing you're buddy with this guy who killed his best buddy, who happened to be in the same position that you're in now. How do you feel about that?" that thing we have, and 8 million pieces of 8, bro. I'm willing to roll the dice. I'm not about to try to roll up on Flint. I'll just do what he wants until I run. Or until I set up a thing where I betray him, which is what he did this time. Very secretly. With the 2 guys who didn't ask for a raise. All right. Anything else from our episode? Anything else from our episode?
I think that's it.
All right, let's talk about jogging. It has been sorry. It's been a bit since we've checked in. I have been not good. I think I took about a month off without intending. There was some weather. There were some great excuses. They were all excuses. I got back on the horse today. I've lost several minutes from my running time.
Oh.
My goals now are to get back.
Minutes.
I gained minutes. I gained weight. I've gotten lazy, but it is warm outside. It's beautiful. Some might say incredibly hot, but it's great for sweating.
Yeah,
really great for sweating.
Yeah, it's really hot. I have actually stuck to my routine, so I'm actually proud of that. But it is hot. It is muggy in Nashville, and my schedule, thanks to summer camp, has shifted so that I am running an hour later as well. Instead of running at 8 o'clock, I'm running at 9. And I can certainly tell the difference between 8 o'clock and 9. Well, 8 o'clock versus 9 o'clock in June. There's a big difference. We just hit the summer solstice, so presumably it's going to start getting better. But man, it's hot, and I gauge how hot it is and how humid it is by how much I need to actually fill my water bottles before I go out. Because through most of the year, I always take my water bottles, but I don't always actually need a drink, and sometimes I don't fill them, so I'm carrying empty water bottles. But no, not for the next few months. Next few months, we will be filling those water bottles before we go out on our runs. We will probably be filling them with ice and ice water because it is hot and humid, and I wish there were a way that you could just track water weight, because I'd like to know how much of that I'm just evaporating out of my body.
Quite a bit, I'm sure. So I'm proud that I didn't completely abandon it. Maybe knowing that we were recording tonight might have been a motivator to get back on track. But
well, then that's good. That's why we do this little check-in at the end.
That's why I didn't even ask if we skip over, because I knew things got to happen. Cool. So anything else you wanted to add, Josh?
No, I don't think so. This is one of my favorite episodes. There's a number of really amusing character actions. It's fun to watch these characters, because this is a lot of maneuvering outside of Vane taking out Low. Not a lot happens. There isn't a lot of running around with swords. But there's a lot of maneuvering, a lot of interaction, a lot of character development, and it's fun to watch.
It is, and I felt like it was a really good episode to propel things forward. Like Anne and Rackham get unblocked, and that opens up some really cool stuff down the road. Vane and Max make up more or less, so that threat's lowered down. Maybe we took a tick off of that threat clock, that countdown clock for them. Flint's got things resolved that they are definitely going forward against the fort. People got things done. Eleanor made her choice. She choosed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for coming on to chat so we could talk about this fine episode.
Yes, indeed.